Well, hi everyone, and welcome to the latest RegK Live. Today we're talking about data, customer data specifically, and we're focusing on the customer data-driven implementation strategies that we've got a report on as well. And we changed up the format a little bit because normally it is Hideki, you talking to an expert in the field. This time I'm going to be picking your brains a little bit on this subject. So for those that haven't seen our previous RegK Lives, do you want to just reintroduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm one of the partners at RedK, and I'm also the lead consultant for CRM strategy. I've been working in CRM for over 15 years now, and I work in the main projects leading, all the technology implementation that we do on different brands.
Okay, and just to introduce myself properly, I'm Tom Jeans. I'm head of sales for RegK. I've been working at RegK now for nearly 7 years, amazingly. And in that time, I've come across multiple different versions of customers, whether they're small, big, complex, particularly from a data strategy perspective. And often when we're talking to customers, this is the number one subject that we cover. And actually this feeds quite heavily into the other RegK Lives that we've already covered. So please do go back and check those out. But a lot of those conversations will come back to what we're talking about today. So previously we've spoken about customer experience in AI. We've spoken about marketing in AI as well. But today we're specifically focusing on that customer data strategy. And a lot of customers will come to us and say, we know we have a data problem, but we don't really know where to start. So where do we start today, really? I think the best place for us to start is to talk about what we're actually mentioning, which is customer data. How would you best describe customer data?
So customer data is actually relatively, it seems simple on the surface, but it's actually quite complex. And I think the challenge is that a lot of companies or a lot of leaders fail to understand that data is their most valuable asset from a digital perspective. Yeah. So we're talking about what makes up customer data, and ultimately what most people talking about CRM are looking for is a 360 view of the customer, right? So the 360 view of the customer is the final outcome. How you get there is really understanding what customer data is. So around an individual or a brand, if you're B2B, you're looking at your basic data, which everybody will have: contact information, basic attributes. You have interaction data, so your day-to-day operations with customers. What data is being created in those interactions? Then you have operational data, transactional data. What are you transacting? What are you selling? In what basis? With what regularity? With what value? And behavioral data. Mm-hmm. So what happens on your digital channels and offline, and how all of that comes together. So to give you an example, if you're a fintech and you have your customers are digital, you might gather a lot of data from them when it comes to understanding the transactions in the different fintech products that you deliver. If you're a payments gateway or if you're a credit card issuer, you're collecting so much data at a transactional level that if you're able to aggregate, you're able to create a more complete view of the customer, right? And I think the challenge with many of our customers trying to understand how to leverage data on CRM operations is getting to utilize this data in a way that it actually delivers value to the business. Yeah. The majority of customers or brands using customer data are barely, using a few attributes of customers, right? So when we talk about customer data, I think we talk about a very complex set of structures that feed into a 360 view of the customer.
And that's a perfect segue, because I was about to say, I think the most common phrase I hear when talking about customer data is, how do we get the 360-degree view of the customer? And really, it's a contextual view of the customer. We don't really want to see everything about the customer. And I think that's the number one challenge to get over it. It seems an obvious example to say, we want to get all of the information in front of everybody so they can make the right decision. But actually, that overcomplicates the situation most often. But what are the kind of challenges that you see or hurdles that customers have got to overcome to try and get that contextual workspace in front of the right people?
Yeah. So a 360 view of the customer means different things to different people, right? So have to understand the functions, roles, responsibilities that a person in a customer operations team is delivering. What is a 360 view for a marketeer is very different that the view that someone from the customer service team needs, right? I think the challenges are really on understanding what that view is from every different perspective. So sales, marketing, customer service. So when aggregating the data, you have to have a clear understanding how that data will deliver value to that one user in their function, in their role, right? That's one. Number two, I think, is a lot of customers that have bought into implementing CRM do not have a strategy on how to make sure that that CRM has all the data that it needs. So there's a lot of focus on, using the bells and whistles, the funky, top layer functionality that is on the CRM systems, the things that look pretty, but without more segmented data and without more complete information, a set of information, you really can make a lot out of that. We see that a lot on marketing teams who struggle to do better segmentation because they don't have the data from the transaction systems or operational data. We had a couple of live sessions recently where we talk about AI and how AI can be utilized in customer service. Again, the customer service agent is a specific view of the customer.
Yeah.
So I think there needs to be a clear understanding of what that 360 view of the customer is for those specific roles and functions. And then there needs to be also a clear understanding from an architectural perspective. How do you feed data from other systems into your CRM? But that is becoming quite challenging because now we have too much data.
Yeah.
So if your brand is a fintech or an e-commerce or retail, you're collecting so much data that there's a question: what data is useful and what data isn't useful. Mm-hmm. And there's often a question of what data should go into the CRM, right? And I think having a comprehensive data strategy to understand how you bring that data into the CRM application for the use of customer service or marketing or sales there needs to be a design behind it, because it's the only way you're going to know what data is relevant. An example could be, instead of bringing all of the customer transactions over the lifetime of the customer, you bring aggregated data. So customer lifetime value, year-to-date value, last 12 months value, or values by segments of products, which means that you probably have to treat the data before it comes into the CRM. So there is an in-between tool, in terms of systems architecture of your transactional data in your CRM. There needs to be somewhere in the middle where you are able to take these conceptual designs of the 360 views from the different perspectives and decide how you treat that data and then feed into the CRM only the data that is necessary. So when we talk about challenges, I think the main challenge is actually understanding the problem and having a strategy, and then implementing that strategy in your CRM roadmap. The majority of the times, technology-wise, is possible with little or a lot of effort. Yeah. But there's usually, everything is possible from a technology perspective, right? So you just got to make sure that there's an ROI on the technology work that you do around the data.
So I just want to pick you up on the technology side, because particularly in the industry we work in, everybody says their solution is going to deliver everything you need. It's all things to everybody, which it can be if you look at it from the right data perspective. So what are the kind of solutions that customers can look at or brands can look at to take it away from the conversation of just technology? Because that's often a hurdle we find customers are coming to me for at the moment.
Yeah. So I think it's quite interesting because obviously brands have a lot of pressure to deliver a better customer experience or better results in the short term, right? So there is a lot of focus on using the functionality that is on the toolkits, be it Salesforce, Zendesk, Microsoft. But people are never going to be able to maximize the power of those tools if they don't have the correct data, right? So, like CRM applications that are used for B2B, for instance, like Sugar CRM or Salesforce, they rely heavily on having up-to-date data on the CRM application, right? I think the number one thing that I will urge brands to think about is, okay, you have to do the short term because you have pressure to deliver. But at some point, you have to think of the midterm and the long-term implications on how you build your digital ecosystem, your architecture, in a way that you slowly but surely create this data-centric model, right, that helps you leverage the value that data delivers to your business. That governance or that strategic thinking around how to use technology to leverage data, I think is the fundamental thing that we need to help organizations to address. Because organizations tend to be designed in departmental areas, marketing wants to do what marketing does. So does customer service, so does sales, right? And in some cases, you might have middle office operations, back office, fulfillment, etc. And the leaders of these business areas, they are very focused on the functional elements of CRM. And they often achieve a lot by working with the software vendors and their IT teams to leverage the products that they buy into, But there's a limit to what they can do if they don't have a cohesive and holistic view of the customer life cycle and the data that is produced through the life cycle. So I think the most impactful element is probably really drawing what the strategy needs to be to make sure that that data is leveraged.
Okay. And leveraging that data requires, as you said, a strategy. That often requires a lot of cohesion in the business. What are the types of strategies internally that can be implemented to help companies make the most of the data they're already collecting, that they already have, that they can then use as valuable pieces of information for their employees?
So I think we can talk about, so when we understand how customers are building their digital ecosystems, we often talk about digital transformation or CRM transformation, right? So creating a model where everybody is helping the business transform to a data-centric or a data-led type of organization requires governance, requires a cohesive understanding of that challenge, requires teams to come together and work in alignment, not necessarily together because they all have their own team goals. And obviously, there needs to be a very, very high capability around implementing technology.
Yeah.
So technology becomes the enabler and that makes things happen, right? So you have a huge piece that is the strategic thinking around building and delivering these things. And on the other side, you need to be technology capable. In some cases, organizations that are, this is really interesting, organizations that are technology-based, e-commerce, fintech, or companies that are quite ahead in terms of their own technology product, are very good at building their own product, but they're very bad at building customer experience designs, digital ecosystems that leverage data for the purpose of customer experience and CRM, right? So even in companies where they have a technological DNA or a digital DNA, they still struggle on understanding this concept because it's very much utility focused. They're trying to build utilities as opposed to trying to build a customer experience, right? Yeah. So obviously strategy is important, but in order to make that strategy happen, you need to have the correct technological capabilities, right? And that happens through software and modern software deployment. Yeah.
And that's a very good segue into the next thing I was going to mention. You were talking about the technologies, the software in place. There's 3 letters that come out of this report quite heavily as CDP.
Yeah. When we were designing the content of the report, we were thinking, how can we help customers understand this problem better, right? So I think the challenge that we're trying to help brands understand is you want to leverage all these massive amounts of data into very specific utilities in your CRM stack. Understanding this data is translated into toolkits and software that helps you do that. So manufacturers like Salesforce, for instance, are coming up with, they're really pushing with the concept of the data cloud and the customer data platform. So customer data platform is a subset of data cloud that allows you to collect data from different points, whether they are transactional, operational, behavioral, and build that 360 view of the customer with all of the attributes that you need to then be pushed into different areas. Now, in the perfect world, one piece of software or one manufacturer will deliver everything for you seamlessly, right? And this is the perfect world in terms of CRM technology. But it's never like that. Usually you have your sales CRM is connected somehow to your marketing CRM, might not necessarily be from the same manufacturer. Your e-commerce, your backend are different manufacturers. Your customer service, which is evolving so fast, that's where AI is being evolving the fastest. So they don't necessarily come from the same manufacturer, right? And the concept of having a CDP, a customer data platform, allows you to aggregate all of the data, construct these views that are important and relevant, so you can fit into the systems that could or not be from the same manufacturer to service the functions and the roles in the different day-to-day jobs, right? And this technology used to be very difficult to achieve if we talk 5 years ago. Just because every time you talk about data warehousing, data lakes, you were talking about, hundreds of thousands of pounds.
Bring people out in hives.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. It was extremely difficult. It was difficult to comprehend. You had the concept of big data, unstructured data. And it's actually, I think that the technology that has come around to solve this problem, it's a long tail history. I've been talking about data platforms for 15 years. And I think only in the last few years is when you've seen these platforms really evolve to a point where they are relatively easy to implement. Also because the standard of interoperability, integrations, right, SOA architectures is now a standard, and all toolkits, all pieces of software have native APIs and standard protocols that can provide the data you need. So everything is being maturing to the point now where you can make use of, customer data platforms to satisfy that need.
And I think that's reflected in the report, and I want to make sure I get this right. So I'm just going to quote it here. In the report, we said that 78% of high performers say they use a CDP versus only 58% of underperformers, which is a pretty stark fact, and it's only going to become broader the longer people move away from that solution.
Yeah, when you look at why that is so CDP is another investment in technology, right? So understanding the value that that's going to deliver to the business is quite important. Everything is born with marketing. So if marketing is able to generate more demand, then everything starts rolling back from there, whether it is a new sell or upsell or cross-sell, right? The ability of an organization to deliver high levels of personalization comes from data. The ability of an organization to optimize their processes, to automate using artificial intelligence, comes from data. So if you want to be able to leverage these points of technology, you have to get your data right. So you have to do your homework. Data is the glue that binds everything together, and that provides the systems with life. It's the blood that provides the systems with life. That sounds very poetic, but
We'll go with it.
yeah, but it's true. If you don't have the right data, you really can make the most out of the toolkits that you're buying.
It's the lifeblood. Yeah.
I for instance, I love the Zendesk customer service platforms, but if they don't have customer data, transactional data, operational data, all of the AI bits and pieces that you have there, you can't use it.
Absolutely.
Same thing with Salesforce sales technology. If you don't have the right data, you cannot automate a lot of the processes, right? So CDP, Data Cloud is really a very, very handy piece of technology now that is maturing to a good point.
Yeah, I think that's an important point to make. I can't tell you the number of times I've had a conversation with somebody who said, this technology, put it in the bin. It's no good to our business at all. We've tried it for too many years. And you scratch beneath the surface and you understand it's not really a technology problem. They're probably bought into the best solution that would fit them.
Yeah,
and actually,
very expensive as well. Yeah,
a very expensive solution that's being more expensive the longer they have it in place and they're not using it effectively. It generally is a data challenge. So to bring it back, I guess, to where we started, of where do we start? Where on earth do companies start in this? What are the steps to success that they can take?
It's a very good question. I think a lot of the times when we are able to deliver the most value to customers is when they are actually posing this question. Brands have spent quite a bit of money on software licensing, and they are solving some problems. But I think they're probably using only 20 to 30% of the functionality on the software.
Yeah.
So why isn't it possible to utilize the software to the best of its potential, right? And it's usually a data challenge.
Just to speak to another example of that, most commonly that's obvious when people are trying to implement AI, but actually it's the same problem with most other CRM technologies. It's just not as obvious to people.
Yeah.
AI has kind of sped up the conversation for a lot of people. They realize I'm not able to make the most of this powerful technology.
Yeah.
But actually it's a conversation they could have been having about other areas of business. Marketing in particular is one that's been lagging behind quite a distance.
Yeah, I think you see it across the three segments of CRM. Like just to think of examples like advanced account management, right? When you really want to give tools to account managers to do their job fast and effectively, they need to have real fast access to a 360 view of the customer, their billing, how long they've been customers, what is their customer lifetime value, their subscriptions, renewal dates, contract dates, renewal value, potential renewable value, etc. Whether it's marketing, customer service, account management, I think if you don't understand the data, you always be overpaying too much for software, right? So obviously, the CRM systems are the front end of the customer relationship, but in the back end, there is so much data that is being produced, right, that can be leveraged on the front end. So going back to the question, what should brands do, right? So I will invite people that are looking at that can relate to this problem to engage with us and try to understand what is your data challenge, how to build an architecture that is focused on delivering value and back to the business, and design a strategy to leverage the data within the technology ecosystem. It doesn't have to be one single software for everything. It helps, but it's not a must. And I think we can do a lot just simply by understanding the strategy, and then putting that strategy to work by implementing, good technology delivery best practices, good DevOps. It's a pretty. It's setting up the ground, a strong ground to build the business upon.
Framework. Yeah. And I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit here. Whose role is it to really outline that strategy? Often, the question comes to me is either I don't know who it is in my business who actually is going to be leading this, or who I need to go to, or it's not in my area, so you need to speak to somebody else.
In some organizations have the role of CIO. some organizations have given this responsibility to the CTO. The CTO conceptually probably doesn't have the understanding, or not the understanding, but the duty to fulfill that function.
Mm-hmm.
In mid-size and small businesses, I think is a bit. You don't have the money to have all these C-level technology people, right? So I think is an effort of the key leadership members to do it, no, to deliver this. We can definitely help shape this conversation. But the digital leadership depends on the organization type. But in organizations below 1,000 people, it's very difficult to have people that are responsible for this specifically, you know, because maybe there's a strong focus on product, there's a strong focus on finance, depending on the company type. And CRM is a very mature but very niche type of practice, right? So making the most out of very expensive CRM technology, I think it takes a village, like they say. You know, it takes a lot of people to get it right. Yeah.
So last question then for you is, what would you like people to take away from this session? What's the main thing?
Yeah.
I think people need to know?
To put it briefly, you're probably already doing the best you can with the software that you have. Mm-hmm. And you're probably wondering, why can we do more with this very expensive software? So I will invite you to engage with us and have a conversation around your data strategy and how to build a digital CRM ecosystem that delivers all the value you need. It's not an easy problem, but it's not an easy problem to fix. But if it was easy, we wouldn't be sitting down here,
Absolutely,
right?
yeah.
So, talk to us and download the report. I think it's quite insightful. It gives you, the top ideas, high-level ideas of what you need to be looking at.
Absolutely. And I'd encourage everybody to also see the other RedK Live sessions that we've done specifically on CX and AI, marketing as well. And we'll be doing more in the future as well. They all kind of wrap together in the same theme. And to bring it all back to the start, where do they start the conversation? As you mentioned, reach out to us. Either leave a comment on this video or drop us a message on LinkedIn. We're happy to start the conversation.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Deki.
See you on the next one.